As you just heard, my name is Ken Dudley. I'm from Mansfield here. And if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of beer. And if you know me really well, you know I'm a really big fan of a beer called ale. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what real ale is. It's a term that is not understood very well. And the story of real ale in America. My experience with real ale began in London, England in the 1990s when I was a student, and there was a pub nearby the college where I attended. And that pub had a guy that would serve beer with a big hand pump. And I went up to him and asked, what is this stuff? And he said, this is ale. And I said, this is ale? We have that in America. We have all sorts of ales. We have Pete's Wicked Ale, we have India Pale Ale. And he said, actually, you just said you didn't know what it was that I was serving, and this is ale. There was a little bit of a disconnect. And I learned that these beers that we all know aren't technically ales at all. And the reason is there's a part of the process where you make ale that is skipped in most of the beer that we have in America. And it has to do with a vessel called a cask. Right here you see a keg, which most beer that we drink off the tap is filtered, is artificially force carbonated, and it's served at a cold temperature. In a cask, the beer is alive and it's served a little bit warmer. It's actually fermented twice, once at the brewery and once where it is served. And here again we see the other side of it being served. On one side we see American craft beers and lagers being served with more artificial carbonation placed in it, like a soda pop. And over here we see an ale being served, and it's only using elbow grease. There's no artificial ingredients placed in it at all. This is a curious thing. I wondered if it ever came to America, but it certainly did. Records show that the very first industry in the colony started in Jamestown, and by 1621 we had a full, vibrant, thriving brewing industry in the United States, and it was all real ale in those days. The type of beer they drank was a porter type of beer. It wasn't called porter yet. And it was popular through the 1800s. And in the 1840s, there was a revolution in Germany. In 1849 to 59, 6 million Germans moved to the United States. And along with immigration came a new product that we'd never seen before. It was something they called at the time Bavarian-style beer. And Bavarian-style beer is something that we today know as lager. The difference is lager undergoes a process called lagering. It's usually fermented one time and not 2 times like ale used to be. It's filtered and it's served a little bit colder. This became very popular and it really took hold after the Civil War. What enabled this beer to take off was the fact that we had steam engines. And in order to make and serve lager, you needed ice. And this is an ice farm that you see to the north. And without steam engines, by the time you would get ice with horses down into the States, in the warmer months, it was water. So the steam engine allowed lager to happen. As lager grew in popularity, you see some patented devices here. These are beer engines. These are U.S. patents from the late 1800s, all the way through 1894. It shows that we're still using hand pumps for ale, even though lager was being served with artificial forced carbonation. So we do have a history of using these things. We call them beer engines. You'll see one over there. And this photo that you know from the Cheers television show is an actual photograph. And interestingly, it tells a story. The guy on the far left actually is holding an ale goblet of the day, and the 2 guys next to him are holding lager goblets, or lager glasses rather. So it shows that there was a shift that was going on in the 1800s. These individuals, the beer drinking population, went through a lot of turmoil in the following years. There was a movement, obviously. Prohibition came about in World War I. A number of things shut the smaller breweries down, and at that time the small, most susceptible breweries are the ones that still made ale. Ale did survive till today. There's one ale that's been made for the 1800s, 1900s, and 2000s. Unfortunately, it's a little worse for wear. The Valentine's Ale was made in New York originally, and is the only true ale in the United States that has been made since 1856 from the 1800s. It's not very good anymore. Speaking of not very good anymore, lager also saw a similar fate in the 20th century. Lagers were increasingly made with adjunct ingredients. Those are things like rice and corn. As we progressed through the 20th century, up to the 1970s, the quality of the beer diminished and the flavor went down. And the reason was it was cheaper. 1980, this gentleman here in Chico, California, his name's Ken Grossman, introduced something called Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's not technically an ale, believe it or not, but it's a much better beer. And he spawned a revolution where beer went and returned to using all malt, for instance. And the lager fell to the wayside. What you see here is a real ale festival, and this is one of the few places where you can enjoy real ale today. This one is in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, these real ales that you see served here are only available at the festival. They're made exclusively for the event. So if you like one of them, you'll probably never see it again. This one is available at 2 locations in New York City 3 days a week. It's called Spotted Pig Bitter, and it's made by the Brooklyn Brewing Company. The gentleman right here, Garrett Oliver, is an excellent brewer, and I would say it's probably the best real ale that's available in America. It's well worth it. There's one other location in the mountains of Oregon. And if you go up to a place called Oak Ridge, Oregon, there is a pub that serves all real ale. It's the only one in the entire United States that serves real ale still, and it's all made on the premises. Unfortunately, that's very far away and hard to get to. So the solution, if you're a fan of it, is we make it. And you'll see our buddy Randy here. He and I have been making beer for 5 years, and this was 5 years ago when we were starting out in our little journey. So, yeah, he looks so young, doesn't he? So, one of the products of this effort is a cask of beer that you'll find over here, and it is a real ale, and it's called Baba Boudin Coffee Porter, and it's made with the help of a friend Paul here, who brewed some coffee extract that we put in it to help flavor it. So if you're interested, it's one of the few real ales that's been served in Mansfield over the last 120 years. So that's my presentation.